Good morning and welcome everybody to this come and see session for the DOP Chair Elect role. This morning is an opportunity to get an overview of the role from the standpoints of different perspectives, different key players within the society with whom the DOP Chair will interact and with whom I have certainly worked over the last few years. So a good chance to find out a little bit about the role and find out from your perspective if this is something that you would be interested in doing. A chance also for you to make up your mind and to basically see for yourself what's involved. So moving on, a quick outline of the session today. This is going to be a very swift session. We're going to run through a number of short sessions from our presenters today. And I'm going to welcome now David Carew, former chair of the DOP, Roman Ronchka, president-elect and chair of the DCP, Natalie Lancer, who is chair of the Division of Coaching Psychology and is here in her role as chair of Senate, and Lauren Elliott, who is the head of member networks and events, each of whom will bring a different perspective to the role of chair. Also, warm welcome to my colleague Andrew Clements, Dr. Andrew Clements, who's chair of the, I beg your pardon, treasurer of the DOP. You may sometimes feel that he's chair of the DOP because I have been delegating quite a few things to him, but he's here as a committee member to give a committee member perspective and a treasurer perspective. So looking at the programme this morning, we're going to hear from Natalie in a moment about BPS Senate, from Roman giving his view, and have a brief break for any questions and answers. Then move on to Member Network Services with Lauren, DOP Committee perspective from Andrew. I'm going to give a very rapid account of some 20 or so things that I have done as chair and chair elect to give you a flavour of what I've been doing for the last few years. And we're going to then invite a former chair perspective and member perspective from David Carew. So without further ado, I'm going to start by just giving you a few wiki facts about the DOP to give you a bit of context. So here we go. First fact has to do with our mission. And anyone who has recently visited our new microsite will know that our divisional mission is to promote the professional interests of occupational psychologists and those in training in the UK, provides a home, a champion, a source of support and development for occupational psychologists and trainee occupational psychologists. And the division supports the development of psychology, both as a profession and as a body of knowledge and science. Second wiki fact has to do with our history. So 1919, we were in early, we were one of the first 3 sections of the society. Then moving on, later in the century, the division itself came into being on the 2nd of July and ran alongside the occupational psychology section. And then in 2001, the division was reconstituted to include members of the former occupational psychology section, which had looked at the science and the academic side of things, with the division, so that the division would cover both the professional and scientific aspects of occupational psychology. Quite an important consideration when we think about our membership. And there are some unknowns in relation to our membership. We're currently running as the 3rd largest division in the DOP. We've just got over 3,400 members. These are March statistics. By the way, our stats drop in March because the society removes people who haven't quite got round to renewing their subscriptions at the end of February. And as the year goes on, we can expect to see a bit of an increase coming through. Okay, so around 3,400 and plus a few more. We have full members, general members, and in training members. You can see the breakdown there. And we have got chartered graduate student affiliate e-subscribers and those e-subscribers who are part of the register for tests and the RQTU. So, first thing you might notice is that chartered doesn't match full. Full people are people who are occupational psychologists and who are academics. General members could be a mixture of individuals who are chartered in a different division or who are registered but have not yet chartered with the BPS. That's a possibility. And people who have joined the division as a graduate member who haven't decided what they would like to do yet, or who are there for their interests, and a whole range of other people who might join the division for reasons of developing their professional background in a related field. So, for instance, human resources. Okay. So the bottom line is we have a very diverse membership. It's a very heterogeneous membership. The largest group in there, however, is chartered psychologists and full members of the division. But there are lots and lots of unknowns. And one of the priorities that we need to address is getting a better capture of member demographics. We don't really know anything about the backgrounds of our members in the form of hard data. We don't know where they work. People who've been registering and doing their EDI data, we're getting the message that people work in the public sector and in academia, but we don't have enough data in order to fully understand our members, and that is an important priority. EDI, we've had an EDI report and we're taking next steps in relation to EDI, so that's a priority. And we have an important focus on capturing the interest and engagement of our early career members and people who have not yet joined the division, who might be doing their master's degree, might be contemplating their training, might be doing further qualifications around occupational psychology, whether it's a PhD and so on, and wanting to capture them and build and grow our professional community. The future, well, one fact about the future is that it hasn't happened yet. So there are certainly many unknowns about the future, but things that we can be certain about include that the 4th of July will be the deadline for submitting your statement of interest for the role of Chair Elect. 22nd of July is the SGM for the election of the Chair Elect. And the 29th of September is the AGM when we will elect the new committee. Important thought to reflect on there is that there will be changes in the committee. There'll be new people coming on board. The composition of the committee will be changing and expanding at that time. Other things that are on the horizon that we know will be happening include maintaining and developing Occupational Psychology Outlook, maintaining and developing Pearl, our initiative that is aimed at early career psychologists, and DOP 24, of course, which will be happening between the 15th and 17th of May 2024. But the other thing that we can be clear about has to do with mission and strategy. This is a strategic role, and the division has a mission, and it is important strategically. So take you back to the mission again. That is our starting point. These are the parameters, or some of the parameters that we operate within. And I hope that those 5 wiki facts will do a little bit to give you a flavor of the context in which this role will operate. And with that, I'm going to ask Natalie Lancer, the chair of Senate, if she would now like to join and give her perspective from the position of being the chair of Senate. Natalie, over to you.
Yes, hi, thank you. So I'm really pleased you invited me to come here. And from my perspective, at Senate, we have all the chairs from all the member networks. So as a chair of DOP, you would come to these Senate meetings, which are approximately 3 times a year. And it's such an interesting space because you get to hear what other member networks are doing, and you get to know people. You really get to know other people who you wouldn't necessarily have met because they're not from your own professional specialism. So so first of all, there's just simply how nice it is to meet other people. But one of the reasons it is that issues that you face in your network, whether that's about EDI or other issues of that nature, are cross-divisional. So they don't just apply to your division. And when we meet as a group, as Senate, we get to thrash out some of these issues and put our heads together and think of a member network wide approach. So as chair of Senate, I also have a place as a trustee on the Board of Trustees, and I am the conduit from the membership, specifically from the Senate, to the Board of Trustees. So if there are any issues that we want to raise at board level, it's good to discuss them in Senate, and then I take note of them, and then I pass them on. So I really hope in the future that we can see much more collaboration on a cross-divisional basis. Actually, we already have a lot of collaboration, I'm very pleased to say, between different branches and different divisions. But so many of us are interested in the same topics. Just to give you an example, there's a number of climate change events happening this year, and this is one of the topics we're going to discuss at Senate. But different divisions are actually working together to talk about their response to climate change and what we can do as psychologists. So that clearly isn't only relevant for one particular member network. So my hopes for the future is that we have loads of people clamoring to be chairs from all these member networks and really get to lead from the front. So you are representing the voice of your division, and then we have this meeting of minds that happens in the Senate meeting. So it's really quite wonderful. I've been asked what my most memorable Senate moment is so far. I think for me, I was in a meeting where it was, because finances always comes up every single time, and there was a moment of sort of gasping, collective gasping, when we were told that any of the money that we think we have as a division is actually not ours as a division, rather it's BPS. So when we think we have certain reserves, it's not quite as simple as that. And I think it's really good to know the governance around money and all these sorts of things as a division, because one of the things that members say is, oh, you know, we should be able to spend this money because it's ours, but it's not. Any money collected is to the sort of BPS central, and then it gets sort of divvied out. So I think one of the things as chair is that we are sort of the voice of reason with our members, and we have to know this sort of detail about finances, about, you know, how things work, in order to explain why things are as they are. Not that they can ever change, but sometimes things aren't so obvious to our members because they don't know all the rules and regulations. And if you have any questions, please contact me on the email address that you can see.
Thank you very much for that, Natalie. Thank you. We'll move on to Roman in just a moment. But before we do that, I just wanted to highlight one correction on the previous slide. It is the 21st of July for the SGM rather than the 22nd. Okay, so thank you, Natalie, and welcome, Roman. It's over to you to give your chair of DCP and indeed President-elect perspective. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Janet. A bit premature to give my President-elect perspectives. I'm still not quite there. I'm incoming, but I can certainly give a perspective from the chair, as chair of Division of Clinical Psychology. I've been the chair-elect and then chair since 2020. And so really kind of interesting and challenging time within the division and within the BPS for lots and lots of different reasons, which people are very much aware of. The four areas I've been asked to cover, I'll go through each one and then just kind of give my reflections. The first one is about how divisional chairs collaborate and support each other. Interesting, I think I first met Janet and also the other division chairs during the time of the COVID coordinating group, when we put together a group of divisional chairs and leaders to work together on the COVID emergency. And that was a really kind of challenging time, but also a kind of great time for learning. So I kind of learned so much about all the different divisions, including division of occupational psychology, and the way that we have differences, but also lots of similarities as well. And I think those similarities are things that have actually led me to think about how I'm being more engaged with other divisional chairs over the last 3 years. The other kind of key area that I was also involved with other divisions was one of our efforts to have a climate emergency as the BPS campaign. I think that was 2 years ago. And again, worked very closely with Janet in the Division of Occupational Psychology, as well as other divisions, to put together a campaign proposal, which unfortunately wasn't selected by Senate, but I think has led to other work developed on the back of that as well, and cross-divisional collaboration work as well. I think we also collaborate as chairs in regular meetings, and I think we've had a series of meetings with the BPS senior management team to raise concerns around issues that affect all of us. One of those has been the planning and implementation of events. And so it's been really helpful to have a united force to discuss some of the key issues and to look at resolution of some of those challenges. And I think I'm really pleased that actually by working together on that, we actually did manage to implement some changes to some of the processes that are there to plan and develop events as well. So that's been a real positive. I think that happened because we were all working together on that, as opposed to trying to work separately. We've also had an informal network of support, and I find that incredibly helpful, where we can actually informally discuss issues that we've been challenged with in our own divisions, and how we can share solutions, share resources, and share ways of problem solving. So I certainly see that collaboration support has been very helpful to me in my time as DCP chair. Next thing is my most memorable moment as a divisional chair. Again, I don't think there's really one standout moment that has really made me think, oh yeah, that really kind of helped to illustrate or emphasize the importance of being a chair. But I think what does come to mind is one of the things I've been really focused on as DCP chair, and will be as president-elect, is around the equality, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism work that's going on within the division of clinical psychology and across the whole of the BPS. And people may be aware that I have written a number of things around this and presented at different events around EDI. And also as part of my regular monthly chairs column for the DCP, I have a video blog as well. And it's really kind of, I think it was great that one of the junior psychologists contacted me from a minoritized background, and said that some of the things that I've been doing to promote EDI within the DCP and across the BPS really inspired her to join the BPS and DCP. And I think that's really important, because again, we do struggle with membership. We have had a fall in membership within our division, as I think have been in other divisions as well. And so I think finding kind of one person that something's connected to, I think it's inspiring and it validates the importance of the work that we're all trying to do. So what is the role of a divisional chair? Well, I guess I was thinking through what kind of things I've been doing as divisional chair over the last few months. And I guess the key one is leadership. Leadership, and certainly within the DCP, leading an exec committee that has quite a large executive committee and a large extended network. And we have our own representative assembly, which involves all the chairs of the extended network. And so one of the things I had a meeting yesterday afternoon with the entire rep assembly to look at looking at the direction of travel that we're going over the next few months. What are the key priorities that we need to be working on within the DCP, and how they the synergy with the rest of the BPS as well. I think as a role model as well is really important, and some of the work I'm doing around EDI I think has been a role model for inclusion for all within the DCP. I certainly take a helicopter view of things. I think one of the things that we now have a chair elect in the DCP, and one of the things I was sharing with Carl Peter, our chair elect, was I really kind of try and take this kind of helicopter view of everything that's going on, and trying to make sure there is some connections between there and some sense of direction and strategy that's within DCP, but then externally within the BPS, and then with wider stakeholders as well. And I think that's a really important role that we take on as chairs, when we have to sort of be accountable in so many different levels. I'm also involved in professional representation of DCP in external things as well. So some of our external engagement through public affairs, through links with Westminster, for instance, and other significant organisations as well, and other things where I sit on as a DCP representative. And then finally, in terms of hopes for the future, for BPS and for the divisions, I guess I've been very much involved in the whole member network review over the last 2 years, the work of Corn Ferry, and now the current member network futures working group. And for me, I think that's really come from a position of looking at kind of where things have been working well, great, but where things need to be improved, we need to really work on those. I think there's a lot of modernisation that needs to happen within the BPS, and I know I'm not alone in thinking in that way. And so I think for the future is really to develop our new strategy. The interim strategy runs out now. We have plans to develop a new strategy for the next 3 to 5 years. And within that, some of the things I really hope will happen, processes will be simplified, that they'll be clear and transparent, and we'll actually be able to get things done in the way that really makes a difference for our members. That will be responsive, and that if we do make decisions either in divisions or in Senate or the Board of Trustees, is that they are implemented quickly and we don't have to wait a long time for things to actually be enacted. I think it's also really important that we are inclusive. And again, as I've already mentioned, EDI and anti-racism is something that's very important to me, and I think to so many others within DCP, but also across the other divisions and sections and branches of the BPS. And I think finally, I think that I would like to see the BPS be relevant to everybody, to all psychologists at all stages of their career, from A-levels through to undergrads to post-qualified, and also people who just have an interest in psychology, to be a member and to see the BPS as being the organisation, the professional organisation for everybody. That's my sort of 4 questions, Janet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Roman, that's really helpful in giving a picture and a flavour of the role of a chair from another division standpoint. We now have a minute or two for questions, and I'm just wondering if there are any questions for either Natalie or for Roman.
But if people do have questions, then of course they can email us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's unfortunately, we're going to have to say thank you, but goodbye to both Natalie and to Roman at this point in the programme this morning. So if there are any questions on the back of the session today, those can be emailed afterwards. And Natalie, your email address is in there, and we'll make sure. Roman, we can pop your. Do you want to pop your email address into chat as well? Would that be convenient, do you think?
I can do, yeah.
Yeah, your DCP chair email address. Okay, that's brilliant. And thank you so much for giving such a strong impression of the type of interactions and collaborations and support. I think there's a real flavour in what you've been saying about how things are and how it works between Senate and between the divisions in a supportive and collaborative way. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. And enjoy the rest of your day, Natalie and Roman. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I'm going to welcome Lauren Elliott, who has recently become head of member networks and events at the BPS. Lauren, if you'd like to spend a few moments giving your perspective, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Over to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Janet. So I've just got a couple of slides to share with you, and I must share that I've been learning a lot already this morning just by joining you guys and listening to Roman. So yeah, great, thank you. So I just thought I'd give a quick overview in terms of who the member network team and the services are. So we are the team based at BPS Leicester office, and we support the member networks and the chairs in your role to ensure activity takes place, to engage the members, which can include learning, whether that's psychology based or soft skills, as well as networking with other peers that you may not have come across otherwise unless you were part of the BPS, which is great. So this just gives you a quick visual. It will show you kind of the admins and the leads that you are more likely to be engaged with on a more regular basis. They will be your admin support for the committees. And then you can see we go up to Ruby in the management level, and we've got Millie in events, and Elizabeth, who does a lot of our project work. So just to give you a flavour of this, out of the names on the screen, myself and Millie started in May this year, and Ruby, Gina, Makinda and Caroline have all actually joined the team within the last 12 months. So we're a real mix of new and old really in the team to help support you. We'll see if this goes on. I'm not at my usual desk. So recent changes following on, as Roman mentioned, we've got the Member Networks Review and the Future Steering Group. So again, that's to look at what we're doing well, what we can do to make improvements, how we can work better collaboratively. And that currently is made up of a whole range of task and finish groups. So part of my role to come into is to help implement the outcomes of those task and finish groups. And hopefully everyone in the member networks will see improvements or continued improvement over the next kind of 18 months. So just to give you an idea, the first task and finish group was to do with the reserves, as Natalie mentioned, reserves pots. So this task and finish group has actually completed. It's yet to be implemented though, so that is still in the life cycle. And the second one is actually the life cycle of committees. So that could be an opportunity for you to get involved in the coming weeks. There will be an invite out for those who want to be part of that group. And that's about how we set up a new network, how it works whilst it's active, and how it can be closed down if it's no longer needed. So just a little bit of how we support the chairs in their role and the committees. So the direct support for DOP currently comes from Gina and Caroline, but you will also see other members of staff from BPS as and where necessary. So if there's anything that you need support on with knowledge and insight, quals or comms, for example, there will be other members of staff that will join your meetings. But in general, for supporting the chair, as it says in the list, we've got ongoing one-to-ones that we can set up with your lead. We've got support with your budgets when you've got events, so that's in the creation of it, and then it's normally once it gets to approval stage it will get to me, and the other bits in general, setting up your meetings, attending your meetings, and operational support for your initiatives and your activities really. Sorry, I feel like I'm rushing through this, but we've got hopes for the future. So I am only in my 6th week of the role. And so these are just some of the little snippets that I've kind of picked up in what my hopes for the future are. So implementing positive outcomes from the Member Network Review. As Roman mentioned, this has been going on for a while before I've joined. So now I'm really keen to make sure that what we have found that can be implemented and can be, positive change moving forward. Continued support to the Member Network members. All of the member network members give their time to the BPS to help improve psychology as a whole, as well as their own areas. So we're here to be that support for those people. For me, improve volunteer recognition. So I want to be able to make sure that we can find a way to recognise those efforts and that time given. And another one that has been highlighted to me quite a lot over the last 6 weeks is the event support and the strategy for that, and to make sure that all stakeholders that are involved in putting together events, hosting events, taking part in events, that we're all fully agreed on that, and that we're doing the best for everybody involved. So that was a real whistle-stop tour, Janet. I hope that was okay.
No, that was great. Thank you very much. Really, really helpful. And one of the messages that is emerging through all of the talks this morning is that there is change going on. There's movement. There's energy. So a lot happening, and they're really helpful to hear about the specific types of support that the BPS is providing for people who come into these roles. So thank you very much for that, Lauren. If we could move on, I think the next person who is on the programme today is Andrew. Is that right, Andrew? Are you ready to pop some slides on the screen and give us a committee perspective? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Just check that that's visible to everyone.
Yeah.
I always worry. Okay, so Hello to everyone. So I think I've been introduced a couple of times already, but just to reiterate, I'm Andrew Clements. I'm the Honorary Treasurer for the Division of Occupational Psychology. And I have just a few slides to guide my thoughts about some thoughts on where we've been, where we're going, and some of the exciting things that should happen in the future. So one of the things that I was asked to talk about is what the committee needs from its chair. So I just want to say as a caveat before I start that none of this is a hidden list of complaints about Janet, who's been doing a great job as chair. So I think something that's really important to bear in mind, I'm sure Janet is going to talk about this, is that the DOP chair plays a really important role in driving initiatives, coordinating what committee members are doing, and involves quite a lot of work. So as a committee member and as a member of the executive who's been working with Janet, I have a few thoughts on the kinds of things that potential chairs should be thinking about. So a lot of things are happening and will continue to happen. A really big thing on a horizon will be the DOP 2024 annual conference. So bear in mind that as a chair, this is a big thing that you would be overseeing. It's important to think about why you want to be chair, what your values and agenda would be, because that is what will help keep you going when there is lots of work to be doing. But bear in mind that the committee will consist of volunteers. No one has to be there. No one is being paid to be there. And they also will have things that they want to achieve. There'll be reasons why they've come to give up their time to help their profession and the professional community. So really it's important to have a democratic approach to leadership, not necessarily in the full academic sense, but being able to involve other people, being able to coordinate people who will sometimes have different perspectives on topics that we all care about. So, for example, a really big part of the DOP agenda is around equality, diversity, inclusion. Everyone agrees it's important, but sometimes people will have different views about how we do EDI. As a chair, you'll have lots and lots of demands on your time, and you could easily pour your whole life plus more into being chair. That's not necessarily sustainable. So I think it's also important to be someone who can delegate to others. Think about this, perhaps developing other people, because there will need to be future chairs who may come from inside or outside the committee. But you can't do everything alone. So make use of the people around you in a nice way. Also important to think about how you manage meetings. There's always more to do than we have time to do. So there'll be balancing act between allowing conversation around productive topics and moving on to get things done. So you'll be thinking about how you're giving space for different perspectives and not shutting people out and creating a space of conformity, but also not maybe getting so bogged down in minutiae that we never get anything done. So time management is crucial, as it is in most lines of work. And it's not all about the meetings. There will be various activities. So I'll be talking more about these, like Pearl, like Occupational Psychology Outlook, like the awards, the conference, etc., etc. There will be lots of things going on. So it'll be important to be able to keep an eye on lots of metaphorical spinning plates. So keeping tracks of lots of different activities that are happening. As I said, it's important to delegate. So you're not trying to fix the world by yourself, but also being able to keep an eye on who is doing what. And perhaps sometimes challenging us, the committee, to be doing our bit. So I wanted to try and combine a few different things. I've been asked to talk about proud moments, achievements, initiatives. So I'm just kind of combining that all into one, because a number of these activities are ongoing, but they're also things that I think we can be quite proud of. I do want to set this in context. So, for example, we've not had conference for a couple of years, and that is a combination of the EWOP conference was intended to take place in Glasgow and would have taken the place of an annual conference. And of course, the first year that it was due, it couldn't happen because of the pandemic. It was rescheduled to the next year. And again, the pandemic was still happening. So in many ways, I think that threw us a bit off track, and we've been doing quite a bit of work to get back on track. Some of our less exciting achievements have been around attending to governance, which has made the work around our more visible initiatives have a better foundation. So a lot of memorable moments have probably been due to actually reviewing governance and how we should work in alignment with BPS requirements. But the more exciting things have included, for example, the launch of Pearl webinars aimed at people in early career. Now, one interesting thing is that initiatives don't always work the way you expected them to. So we're aiming at early career individuals, for example, MSc students, occupational psychology trainees, PhD students, etc. But we've had actually fairly established individuals coming to these as well, because we have presentations given by people who are themselves early career, for example, stage 2 work they've been doing, or that research dissertation. And we've been drawing a wide variety of people, including from around the world, who are just interested in networking and seeing what other people are doing. So as chair, this may be something you're continuing to promote. You may be guiding how we are doing this. We've had Occupational Psychology Outlook, which is our new publication, taking the place of the old OP Matters. So we had our first issue in December 2022. We have next issue coming out very soon. I'm not going to jinx it with a specific date. And we'll be having another issue later this year. And it's been really exciting. I think we're really proud about the papers that we had in our first issue. Interesting topics, a variety of occupational psychology areas represented, which are themed around crisis, including but not restricted to COVID. And I can't say too much, but I've had a sneak preview of what's in the next issue, and I'm very excited about that too. So we're getting a really interesting range of topics that you perhaps wouldn't automatically expect to see in an occupational psychology journal, for example. It's a space where people can publish things that they wouldn't ordinarily, and it brings together theory, research, and practice. So that is something that I'm personally very excited about. We've also got the launch of the DOP Awards. I can't say too much about that, but we've relaunched them after a bit of a hiatus. We invigorated the criteria. We are having a bit of a review about how it works, but one of our aims is to encourage more people to be applying, to give ourselves flexibility to recognise more people. So it's not only about recognising a single best person in our community, but to be representing a number of people who are driving forward good practice in research practice and other aspects of occupational psychology. So there'll be more news about that in the future. We are driving a number of webinars which have the virtue of enabling more people to be able to attend than might be the case if we were hosting a face-to-face location. So this year, for example, there will be and have been webinars around subjects of bullying, around supervision, and there will be more to come. Also, some really important topics that are becoming much more mainstream, for example, equality, diversity, inclusion, and sustainability, are becoming things that are not just discussed at committee meetings in isolation. They become a thread running through all the things that we're doing. So, for example, when we talk about conferences or we talk about awards, we are thinking about sustainability, for example, in terms of materials or where we hold events. We're thinking about equality, diversity, inclusion. So who can actually attend, who can get involved, who might face barriers that we need to consider. Now, we obviously need to do more, but again, I think it has been great that this is becoming normal that this is driving how we do things. Now, I'm not quite sure how I am doing for time, so I'll try to wrap up things shortly. A few reflections that have been on my mind. Volunteering is something I regard as an endurance activity. There may be times when you wonder why on earth you thought it was a good idea to give up your time to be, for example, a chair or committee member. And I think that's normal. So be realistic about the resources that you have. There might be some things that you have to deprioritize because you can't get everything done. So you have to pick and choose the most important, most impactful things. It will be important as chair to give yourself time to recover, and think about your support structures. Be kind to yourself, because if you're thinking about being chair, there's a good chance you're the kind of person who's your own harshest critic. Preparations take longer than you think. I'm really excited about all the things we've been doing, but I would say everything took longer than expected. For example, Occupational Psychology Outlook, we wanted it to launch earlier, but I'm glad that we put the work in to make it good. You may sometimes have to compromise. That might be on some of your values, some of your radical visions, etc., because you've got to bring your committee along with you on a journey. You've got to bring the division along with you on the journey. And you've also got to remember that you are representing, in a sense, all of the membership. You've got to be showing that there are benefits for everyone. So you've got to be able to listen to others. And you're probably not going to get everything done in your term that you would want to. So be willing also to pass on a baton when it is time. It's important that you can reflect and review on processes. So you might think about how well is this committee meeting going. So something Janet has been doing is asking for a quick review at the end of pretty much every committee meeting about how that particular meeting has gone. And that has influenced, for example, how we structure things. For example, in terms of giving time for discussion. Remember, as I said earlier, why you wanted to do this, because there'll be days when it's a struggle to remember. I've often suggested to people in a range of different endurance activities, write on a post-it note or something like that why you're doing this, and have it somewhere visible you can look at on difficult days, because we all have difficult days. But also take moments to mark when something really good has happened. It can be really tempting to move on to the next task. And I think one thing particularly, 90% of the time maybe doing the prep work, and actually the moment of launching something really exciting is actually a small sliver of that. But it's important to celebrate nevertheless. So those are just a few things. I am sure there are more, but my email address is on the first slide of my presentation. So I'm going to stop talking, so it is time for other things to happen. And thank you for listening and bearing with me.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for that very balanced overview of what's been happening in the committee, and also your insights and wisdom around what's involved in the role. I think that's really, really useful. So thank you for that. I think I'm up next, and I'm going to pop my slides back up onto the screen, or I'm going to try and put them back up on the screen. If you would just bear with me a moment. And what I'm going to do is to give you sort of a rapid fire run through of 20 or more things that I've done while chair-elect and chair. And this is just to give you a flavor of things. I'm not going to go and drill into them in detail. Happy to catch up about any one of them, or indeed all of them, after the call, if there are any questions, or if anyone would like a discussion. So here we go, the 20 plus things that I've done as chair. Now, can I just confirm, Andrew, could you give me a thumbs up if you can see my slide? I know that one of my challenges as chair is that sometimes the slides are not visible. Thank you very much for that, Andrew. Okay, so I I've initiated and I've steered and I've championed things, and this is a theme that's run through a number of things. So I initiated a review of the divisional publication, and that led ultimately to OPPO, which Andrew has been telling us about today. Steering and championing things comes into a lot of things, and I think using my knowledge built up over almost a decade, because I was previously chair and chair elect in Scotland, which allowed me to get insight, allowed me to get the lie of the land, allowed me to get to know people and the way things work within the BPS. So steering things, and sometimes through challenging situations, trying to navigate around barriers that emerge, and championing what we're doing in order to make things happen. Those are important themes that I think have emerged through my role as chair. I have led change, and as with anyone who puts their head above the parapet and leads change, there are going to be people who are enthusiastic and will embrace that, and other people are a little bit more reluctant to embrace that. But these are changes that have been led by what Andrew was saying around governance and aligning what we're offering to what our members need and what our members are telling us, and bringing the division into a state where it is future-proofed. So we're trying to make it relevant and up-to-date. So changed the way that the committee roles were designed. We moved from an old system of having strategic conveners to a system in which everyone on the committee has a lead responsibility, so everyone can contribute on an equal basis. And we've moved from a system where we had working groups in the past that were run over a number of years, and we're moving towards a situation where we have new groups, and you can see the new group structure on the DOP microsite, and you can also see where we're coming from in terms of the interest streams. So strategies, there's a strategic dimension within this role. And this is both in terms of participating within Senate, but also within the division itself, developing strategies such as the conference strategy, which we have recently approved and published. And I would like to emphasize that as chair, I don't get to just go out and do these things. There's a whole process of working with the committee and getting the committee's buy-in, and indeed putting forward a proposal, having it voted upon, and then having it recorded in a suitable way so that it can be found later on by others who need to reference it. I've been a buffer. I've tried to be a buffer to try and enable members of the committee to do their roles. So if there's a need to go out and find resources, or if there's a need to troubleshoot, I try to provide that buffering. I have followed the Nolan principles to the best of my ability. That's an important thing to note when you're considering becoming a committee member or a chair or a chair elect, that we do have a special code of conduct for people undertaking work on behalf of the society, and the Nolan principles are central to that. So good idea to have a think about that, because this is the context, the parameters in which you operate. I have sought advice many times, and I've sought it from many places. I have a constellation of people that I will turn to for support both within and outside the committee. And Roman was telling us about the support that chairs provide one another, and Natalie was talking about the discussions that go on at Senate. I have had discussions with past DOP chairs. I've had discussions with a range of people both within and outside the society and within the committee. Listening. I do my best to listen. I do, I'd like to see myself as somewhat creative person, so I do get enthusiastic about ideas, but I do also make an effort to listen both to my committee members and to members and to my colleagues within and across the BPS. Chairing, yes, I do quite a lot of chairing, both of the executive committee and the DOP main committee, and other discussions and groups that I may need to convene a short life discussion with. I got the committee to vote on a regular basis. I'm very particular about key decision points and recording those decision points so that we can come back later and understand what we have actually agreed to. So people get some exercise putting their hands up and down on Zoom when we have to make an important decision. And yes, I do delegate. Andrew has undertaken quite a lot of work for us, but other members of the executive have picked up work as well. And I think Andrew also mentioned that he had represented us at Senate when I couldn't be there. He's also represented on my behalf at EWOP Constituent Council. Part of my chair role is to be the constituent member, and there have been occasions when I couldn't be there, and Andrew stepped into that. Senate, you've been hearing about Senate today, important representational role on Senate for the chair of DOP, as is the case with other chairs. I'm also the occupational person on Practice Board. Now, you'll notice that this is called 20 plus things I've done while chair elect and chair. Practice Board is no longer an automatic part of the role, but I think it's really important that chairs, such as myself, undertake a role with at least one strategic board. It helps to get the voice of the profession into the discussions and decisions of that board, and it is also an opportunity to find out about what is happening and bring back strategic information to the DOP. Like Roman, I've been part of the BPS network review, and I was part of the network reference group and contributed for a substantial period of time to those discussions, and was part of the futures group for a while as well. Thinking back to my days as a chair elect, I was very early on brought into the BPS COVID response and by the then President David Murphy, and I led a work stream within that on working differently. It was an amazing opportunity to be part of the coordinating group for that response, and to be in a position to collaborate both with senior members of the BPS staff at Leicester, and also with a range of leaders across the different divisions, many of them in the chair-elect role. And it certainly opened a window, I think, in terms of how we can collaborate productively across the different domains of psychology. It also led it to other things. I've collaborated with other chairs since then. Roman was telling you a little bit about that. And the opportunity to work interdivisionally is an important opportunity that can keep us in touch with the rest of the society. Other things coming out of this, I was actually interviewed a few times on radio. I was almost the lead story on ITV 1 o'clock news, but got gazumped by something that was happening in the field of education. More broadly, I've been involved in interacting closely with the communications team, both on our microsite and on our newsletter. So there's a communication dimension to what I've been doing, both back with the COVID response, but on an ongoing basis. And because of the COVID response work, I even did a workshop for BPS staff in my capacity as chair of the division. And went on to present at the Latvian Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology. So there is the opportunity to look out with the BPS and to have communication and contact with other organizations. I have already mentioned EWOP, which is a key one. I've worked with BPS staff from across different teams. I've worked with the professional conference organizer and been doing some work very recently on the DOP 24. have interacted with and met with and discussed with different matters with the BPS senior management team. I have provided feedback, and I have provided quite candid feedback at times in order to represent the interests of the division. Throughout all of this, I have used a range of transferable skills. I was thinking about it recently. My career as an elected committee person in one form or another and in one setting or another dates back to the age of 15, when I was first elected as a representative on my high school student council when I was living in Eastern Canada. So I think I can date my experience of committees and my skill development right back to then. But having worked in the public sector, having worked in the NHS, and having had done work around policy, I have built up a range of skills and experiences that I've been able to bring into the role of chair. And I have learned a great deal from this experience, both about myself and about the society and about others and about the profession. And I did it all virtually because I became chair-elect just on the eve of the pandemic. And I have never travelled in my role as chair-elect or chair. And I've, the pandemic, the lockdown is behind us. However, I'm in a very special situation in that I'm also a primary caregiver now to a very unwell person at home, and this has prevented me from traveling. So I think this also means that in terms of diversity, there is the opportunity for this role to be undertaken with reasonable adjustment and reasonable support from both the BPS and from the committee and the executive of the committee. So that's just a whistle-stop tour. There are many, many other things that I could say, but I wanted to make it a very short snapshot. And I think in terms of my most memorable moment, it was the moment when we actually launched Occupational Psychology Outlook. It was an experience that was not without its challenges. It was a lot of work, but it was a real sense of satisfaction to see it in print when we launched it on Christmas Eve last year. And finally, just taking you back to that code of conduct for members undertaking activities on behalf of the society and those 7 Nolan principles, well worth giving some thought to. And picking up on some of the points that have come out earlier today, there is support there. There is a really good community amongst the divisional chairs, a supportive community. And as I think Andrew's been encouraging people to do think about, let's call it your DOP life balance, how you're going to manage those things, and do have discussions with those who are close to you, those who depend upon you, about how they can support you and work with you if you decide to that this is something that you'd like to pursue. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask David Carew, who is going to give us a former chair perspective and a member perspective on as your contribution today, David. So David, welcome, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Janet. And yes, good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody, and thank you for attending this important seminar today. I'm giving a chair's perspective, an ex-chair's perspective. I was chair in 2009, so a long time ago now, it seems. Janet, an impressive range of achievements there for you, and underpins the hard work that chairs do, of course, over many, many years. And chairs down through the years will have had different types of years as it's gone along, whether it was the pandemic or whether it was something else. As I say, I was chair in 2009, and at that time, regulation for the profession was the big issue at the time, as was reform and transformation of the committee structure for delivery to align better with objectives for what we're trying to do as a division. The kind of third element of it really was supporting the qualification, which was going through major changes at the time as well. So it was quite a challenging and interesting year, very much. But I pay tribute at the time, as we all do, to our teams that we worked with in each of those committee years, because they're fantastic. And as Andrew rightly said, people give a lot of time and effort and thinking time and so forth, and working together and developing networks and making the division stronger. And, in terms of kind of what you hope for the future, well, the future is now. And if colleagues and fellow psychologists are sitting there thinking, well, where does my leadership journey start? I want to inspire you to basically take the first steps towards doing that, because that's what's really, really important. The decision you make today and discussing the possibilities of this with us after this call, etc., are really, really important. So reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. We're very keen to look at people who may be starting on their leadership journey, or those maybe who are continuing their leadership journey in their profession. It doesn't matter what point you're at. What's important is your interest, and that you care for what happens to the division going forward. So in terms of the hopes for the future, well, a division that is strong, that's effective, that's member responsive, that is in step with basically what members are thinking, and also what we're trying to do. We're stronger together, and we have to look at this in terms of how we use our resources well, whether we're initiating change and campaigns, whether we're looking to support our training network, which is really, really important as the feeder basically for the talent that will fill leadership positions in the future. And if you've had involvement, you've got skills and transferable skills, something that Janet mentioned there, from other activities in your life, your professional career, that would be very valuable to the society more broadly, but particularly our division in the DOP. And I suppose if I just reflect a little bit, why is the DOP important? Well, very much, as mentioned there, member needs, being responsive to member needs is really number one. And I think it's also about ensuring we're influential as a division for our members, on behalf of our members, with the BPS, and indeed more externally as well, in terms of being seen as a source of informed evidence and so forth, in terms of scientific inquiry as well, that we're championing the science of what we do and contributing to the wider societal kind of challenges that are going on as well. So quite a big agenda there. And I suppose ultimately providing a professional identity for occupational psychologists, that's really, really important. Why people join a profession, why they spend a fair chunk of their life in it, and how they contribute to that in the wider sense, and the personal growth that may come with taking up a leadership role is really, really important. One of the things that I enjoyed in my year was that you grow an awful lot, and you learn a lot, and you learn a lot about yourself and about working with other people. And so you're laying down good foundation skills for your career in the longer term as well. So really, really important, I think, in that sense. So why is the role of chair important? Well, in terms of being a good ambassador for the profession, I think fundamentally that's what it's about. And like every enterprise and every organization, it needs direction, and it needs a steer and a coordinator, not just somebody who's a good operational and efficient administrator, but somebody who can also initiate change and lead and inspire, and also be a good listener, and also be able to help people achieve the types of things they're trying to achieve in their various committee roles is really, really important. And a number of colleagues here have echoed and amplified those points earlier this morning. And kind of going forward in relation to that, providing strategic leadership and inspiring others is really, really important. So in your role as chair elect and then chair, you've got great opportunity to support the profession by initiating change, really, and leading for the better. And I suppose making the best use of the talents in the team that you're working with as well, and to the strengths. So that's a very important, it's a very responsible role as well in relation to what you're trying to do. But your personal leadership impact will come through. So if you are early career and you are thinking about this, start the conversation. Nothing will happen unless you start a conversation. And we are, hopefully today, you'll get a sense of us all as people that we're approachable, we're interested in helping you shape your ideas and so forth. And you will develop, as I say, in the role. And there is a wider network of people, as Janet has said, lots of people we can draw on basically to help us, give us counsel and advice. I benefited hugely from that over the years of my time with the committee, dealing with some very challenging sort of change and so forth that was going on at the time. And you have a chance to put your unique stamp on that, and that's really, really important. So I think, memorable moments, well, there were lots, I suppose, in terms of, well, regulation now is over a decade old. We have a very, I think, good committee structure now, and it's gone through further iterations and changes, which have been very good. And I think our qualification is also continuing to mature basically in its delivery as well. So many things to be thinking about there. I stand ready to support anybody basically who wants to be chair elect, if it would be helpful in any way for people to mentor them or anything like that. So, but Janet, thank you for the invite to this session today. I'm going to stop there because I know you want to get on to other things. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very, very much, David, for joining us today and for bringing that perspective to the discussion. Really, really helpful. We can just, I think, wrap up this morning's and this afternoon, indeed, session. We've run into the afternoon by thanking all of our presenters today. So thank you to Lauren and to Natalie and to Roman and Andrew, as well as yourself, David. And thank you, Gina and Caroline, for getting everything set up for us. There are just a few key dates to remember, as we were saying earlier during the seminar. 4th of July, easy date to remember, midday, is the deadline for expressions of interest in the role of chair elect. And the 21st of July will be the special general meeting when the chair elect is formally elected. Okay, and then, of course, looking further into the year, we've got an AGM coming up on the 29th when the rest of the committee will come on board. So, important to, digest what you've heard on the call today during the recording. If there are any questions, we'd love to hear from you. And you can do that by contacting the speakers directly today or by emailing Member Network Services. Gina, could you just remind us what the email address is for Member Network Services?
Yes, of course. It's dop.mns@bps.org.uk. So DOP for Division of Occupational Psychology, full stop, MNS for not Marks and Spencers for Member Network Support, and then at bps.org.uk.
Okay, thanks very much. And any questions that you put in to Gina will be then relayed on to ourselves, and we'll be delighted to come back to you. So I hope this has been helpful to people and hope you'll give it some consideration. If you decide that it's for you, that's great. Look forward to your expression of interest. If you decide that you want a little more time to think about it, maybe there's someone else out there that, having heard what we're saying on the call today, would fit the bill. So why not encourage them to give it some thought? And this recording will be available. They can listen to it and form their own view. And this has been very much about giving people the space and time and information to see for themselves and to form their own view. And I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you.